Hello and welcome to another episode of Mordred's Community Multiplayer Political Chat. I'm Torsion and I'm joined as always by our co-host Zale. Welcome to the program, Zale.
Hey man, how you doing? Yeah.
Doing well. So, first impressions on the last Saturday's session. What do you got for us?
It's been a hot minute, but um, I gotta say it's turned out interesting. I think there's a lot of different sort of plays that are gonna happen. I don't know if that's the most eloquent, but we have a lot of as I'm sure you'll discuss later, we have a lot of players moving about, myself included, different countries, that sort of thing. You see, Naples really expanded there into the Tunis area pretty heavily. A new Mamluks player in Fizz Biscuits who's known to play well with others. So it's going to be interesting to see because I know Castile was interested in that area. Fizz might be, probably not, but he might be interested. And then Naples came in unannounced. Muscovy had an amazing session, but you see that Georgia's kind of creeping up there as well. And then we have I don't know, we might have a new Poland player. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, so Poland had a sub last week, but the regular will be back.
Okay. So, but we might have a Georgia sub or a Georgia protection for a round. So
Correct.
that's gonna be interesting. But yeah, you can see right there Muscovite Central Asia. So I think there's a lot of low key expansions everywhere. I as Muscovy I gave or not Muscovy, as Mamluks I gave Khorasan some cores back, and then the AI just went ham and took over like an entire country, Sistan, just by themselves. So that was pretty impressive from an AI versus AI. Like that turned out pretty well. Um, I don't know. It was a pretty low key session, but I think it's mixed up a lot of stuff.
And I'd have to agree, quite low key, zero player wars, but there's a whole lot churning under the surface there. Europe, pretty jam packed. Castile finally got the Iberian wedding to fire. They've been extremely quiet, but um, well positioned to make a move in this next coming session. Holy cow, they have a +5 advisor. Did not realize that.
Yeah, he's been. I noticed that actually. He's been doing a lot of sneaky stuff to get some extra manpower and stuff. So
Do you predict blue flames between Naples and Castile over the Aragon cores on Saturday, or do you think that's more of a long-term potential area of conflict?
I think that depends on Castile's diplomacy and what Austria does, but given how Naples went in very unannounced and kind of just took thing, I expect conflict there. Like I said, I think I said last time, it's either going to be this session or the session after the session, but I do expect Naples to be involved in a player war relatively soon.
And Europe's had very strong sessions so far. Switzerland looking thick, Milan, Naples, Austria, Brandenburg, Cologne, Burgundy, France. Just a lot of powerhouse countries packed in a little area. Sweden started making moves into the mainland Europe, if you want to call it that. Poland continued to develop and grow. Muscovy, as we mentioned, strong session. What blocks do you see forming in Europe?
I didn't pay enough attention that to be able to tell what other people were up to, but I do think that we're going to see. I mean, we kind of have that Austria that you're highlighting right now, that kind of central power sort of thing based around Austria, um, that I think is going to come into contact with a lot of things, and I think a lot of diplomacy is going to revolve around um, the sort of who Burgundy, who Austria, and who Naples ally themselves to. Because you got France, you got England, you got Sweden, Brandenburg, Cologne, and Switzerland. All these players are looking like, okay, where can I expand? What can I do next? Um, and England, I believe, recently took colonization,
Yep. And
but
I just also want to point out right now we're looking at England's diplomatic map mode. They are currently in violation of the player alliance limit, as both France and the Ottomans are great powers, so they currently technically have 5 player alliance slots. So they will need to either remove Sweden or France or the Ottomans at the start of the session.
Yeah, and depending on who they remove, like that could change a whole bunch. If they remove France, we could see a potential English. I don't know why, but we could see a potential English Castile or English Naples or something. Milan splitting France, and or rather than that, it could be Muscovy goes like, "Whoa, hey, hold on, why are you still allied with the Ottomans? Like, what's going on there, England?" Something like that. So, um,
Interesting tensions I see brewing in the German area as well. Um, you've got a Cologne player, you've got a Burgundy player who became the emperor, I believe still is the emperor, yep, still in the HRE. We've got Brandenburg, we have Sweden moving down into the Lubeck trade node. As of right now, it looks like Brandenburg may be the odd man out. They do have the Austria alliance, but it looks like they may be aligning more closely with Poland, whereas Sweden, um, allied with England, Naples, and Muscovy. That's a strong block. Cologne is aligning themselves with Burgundy, and then Switzerland, obviously, with Burgundy, Milan, and Austria. So if I had to pick right now, I'd say Brandenburg aligns with Poland, Sweden with the traditional HRE, and we'll see some conflict brewing over the Lubeck and Saxon trade nodes.
well, also I want to point out Cologne currently is only allied with Burgundy.
Yep.
Um, And so that could be a very interesting Brandenburg versus Cologne. Brandenburg reason Poland and Austria. Um, that's pretty powerful versus a Cologne and maybe like a Burgundy, Switzerland. I could see Switzerland allying. Is Burgundy a major power? Hold on. No, they're not. Okay. Neither is Austria. So yeah, they could. I could see Cologne allying Switzerland. Um, that would be that would be a very interesting sort of war. And then, like, if Cologne, for instance, allies Switzerland, then Austria might be thinking to themselves, well, hold on, I'm also allied to Switzerland. Do I really want to continue helping Brandenburg, or maybe I want to change priorities to Cologne, who's, if I have to fight him later, if diplomacy changes later, Cologne, as a Hanover or whatever he forms, is going to be militarily not as strong as Prussia. However, economically, probably is going to be stronger. So it's going to be very interesting to see if Brandenburg can instead secure like a Sweden and a Muscovite alliance. That could put him in a very strong position because the Polish-Lithuanians aren't on the Great Power list yet, so he can afford to do an alliance with Muscovy and Poland and Sweden. Um, if it kind of shakes out in a direction where Austria tends towards somewhere else. That's why I'm not certain what sort of alliance blocks they're going to form. I do think that the Naples, Austria, Milan block is going to stay strong, but a lot of these other minor princes here, Switzerland, Cologne, Brandenburg, it's gonna flip flop, and um, Burgundy has a very interesting game ahead of them. I would guess they're going to form Lotharingia. However, I would not be surprised if instead of doing that, he decides to form Netherlands. Um, Either way would be very good for him, but he has, other than a very thick Switzerland, I'm not sure that he has very solid allies for a war against potentially Austria and France. Um, it depends because Naples. The thing about Naples is, like I said, I expect him to get caught up in player conflicts, but he's in one of the tricky situations where if one of his allies calls him into war, or he gets declared on and calls one of his allies in, he doesn't quite. He's not quite economically and militarily in a good enough position to fight a 2 or a 3 front war. He could very easily fight a 1 front war, I believe, but the problem is when things would stack on top of that. So it's gonna be very interesting to see this session. There's definitely gonna be blue flames popping up, and that's going to determine a lot of the alliances going forward, I think.
And as we zoom out a little bit and pivot to two of our colonial players so far, we have Portugal and England. England investing heavily in the Congo and Ivory Coast area from an expansion perspective. Nothing new world yet. Portugal, obviously, two colonial nations in the Caribbean and Brazil, a little bit of expansion into the Ivory Coast. Do you do you see them working in a semi-cooperative manner, or do you think there's going to be some colonial conflicts brewing between the Portuguese and the British?
I think that they're going to be working semi-friendly. Um, England is allied to France. Portugal is allied to France. That if you just look at Portugal's allies, right? Castile, France, and Burgundy. That tells me someone who is focusing on colony game and is like, I don't care about all your wars. I got my allies. I can help them out economics with a few troops if need be, but you don't mess with me. I won't mess with you. I'm gonna just build as many colonies as I can. And that's why I don't think that they're definitely working together. I don't think that that's gonna last a very long time because I'm of the opinion that if they had really been working together, and if they're going to continue, why is Portugal holding on to all these Africa colonies? Why are they still, making colonies and that sort of stuff in this region, and not selling them to the Brits? And it's because they're I think worried about controlling trade power still. Um, why would you worry about controlling trade power? Maybe they just haven't been able to sell it yet. That could be, but um, it's going to be interesting to see.
And as we zoom out a little bit and pivot to look at the opposition from a colonial perspective, obviously we have the Kamchadals who are going colonial. We have Ashikaga who has gone colonial. We have Malaya who's expanding into Australia and securing the rest of uh, the Malacca and um, those valuable trade areas. And then we also have a very strong Ethiopia and Mamelukes who have expanded aggressively into both um, the Zanzibar trade node. Do you think we will see any conflict here, or are the Europeans going to see strong powers not only in the Middle East, not only in Southeast Asia, but also India, and say it's not worth it, we'll focus on other areas?
I think a lot of that depends on Malaysia. If Malaysia decides, what, hey, I wanna get trade downstream, then I think that we could see Malaysia and England working together. Even like that'd be very strange, but it could roll out. Or he could talk with um, the a potential Coruscant player. Though Coruscant, I think, is dropping. I'd be
Coruscant has
talking,
dropped.
yeah. Um, but instead of the Coruscant, then it could be Ottomans or Georgia or even the Mamluks, even Ethiopia. But um, depends on kind of like, so if India and Malaysia have bad relations, Malaysia might want to expand into India, in which case they might want to look further afield for help. And if they're expanding that way, Ethiopia is trying to get the trade power. Mamluks are trying to get the trade power. They could come into conflict. They might be able to work together, but if I was Fizz, I think, yeah, let's work with Malaysia, right, as the Mamluks. But at the same time, you're going to want your trade power to be coming up to Alexandria or to Constantinople area, and Malaysia is going to want it to kind of stay in maybe Gujarat. Um, and so for Ethiopia, if they can get Malaysian help, right, if they work out some sort of deal, they can get Malaysian help. Um, then they'll be able to stop the colonizers from Europe. In which case, England would be better off not going further and just sprinting through these Congolese land, sprinting through the Sahel region and like Benin and stuff, getting the gold there, getting the trade goods there, um, and potentially even attacking Mamluks and Ethiopia through the Congolese territory and take Mutapa and all that gold there and ivory there. I think that might be the more efficient route for Egypt, or not Egypt, but England, sorry, economically. Uh, if if Ethiopia and Malaysia work out something, if Malaysia decides that they want to go in on it, or Ashikaga and Malaysia decide, hey, we want to control all this, then we could see a very different game coming in.
And we'll pivot back to the Middle East. We've got the Ottomans, we've got Georgia, we've got the Mamelukes. A little bit of a power vacuum in Persia, unfortunately, due to a player withdrawal. But do you see any conflicts brewing here as the number of AI in the region dwindles?
I I don't know. At this point, I think that there could be a Delhi move. So last time I mentioned how I don't think India is big enough um, for three players. I think it's big enough for two. That was with a Persia, a strong player or a decently powerful player of Persia. With that gone, Delhi no longer is kind of boxed in or needs to worry about that side as much, and they'll be able to expand into Persia quite rapidly. And then they'll be contesting the Persian node, and then it'll make more sense for them to fight you in the Ottomans rather than fighting the other Indian powers. Which, of course, the Indian powers are going to be all for, and they're going to Vijayanagar and Bengal are going to be like, heck yeah, let's help Delhi out. Let's push across here. So I think that depends on Delhi. If Delhi wants to fight you and contest Persia, then which I think is the most likely outcome, then yes, there's going to be player conflict there. Either next session or the session after that. If they don't, if Delhi thinks to themselves, I'm just going to build really tall, I'm going to build a super Delhi, maybe form Punjab, and we're going to fight any Europeans or any, like Korea, Ashikaga, and we're going to kick them out, right? Then there won't be conflict. So it's at this point, it's up to Panda. If he wants to build a tall Delhi, then there won't be any conflict. If you're content with just stopping at Persia, then there won't be conflict. But if you want to go into India, or if he wants to control Persian node, there's going to be conflict, and it's kind of mostly up to him, I think, at this point, because he's on the border. You're already in Persia. He's on the border. If he says, all right, I'm building my forts here, and this is where I stand, then But if he decides, hey, no, this is a lot of good land that I can sneak into. And it might also be that you guys decide to split Persia. He takes the trade nodes on the two trade ports on his side, and like a bit of Hormuz. And it's like, hey, I'm taking this, but the goods aren't that great over here, and I just want the trade power so you can't steal stuff from Lahore or Gujarat. In that case, fair enough. Maybe there won't be conflict, even though he's in Persia, but that's very unlikely given what's gone down so far.
Does Delhi really have 7,000 ducats in the bank?
Yes.
Holy cow!
Yeah, he's been saving up. He's had a very good session. Last time if you look at the map from this and last time, all he's done is consolidate small regional powers, punching them over and over again for money, and then taking them over and slowly taking his time to build up and stuff. So he's done a very good job of not looking threatening, but being very scary. And he's going to have a very strong economy going forward.
Yeah, incredibly rich. It'll be interesting to see. And holy cow. Yeah, that's a stunning amount of ducats.
That's why I'm saying there's not, India probably wasn't big enough, because like he had just, compared to Bengal, for instance, no offense to Bengal player, but compared to Bengal, he's in a much stronger position. And so it didn't make sense for him to want to come fight the Ottomans, who have such great quality and decent eco right now, when he could go after, go through Bengal into like the trade, Burma and Siam and stuff. But now he has an open border, and he, instead of needing to worry, about threats on either side, he has a friend on one side and a huge amount of money he can spend. Of course, he might still go through Bengal. You never know. Could be the betrayal of the century.
That'll be interesting to watch. And as we shift even further towards the east, we have Korea, we have Ashikaga, we have Malaya, and we have Kamchadals. When is Ming going to collapse? Is the Ming implosion inbound?
I would have said absolutely this session. Given the amount of damage that those guys did to Ming last session, if you just tab into Ming I don't know if you have, or even in observer mode, I guess you can just see they got a lot of rebels going on right now. But it's with losing Korea and Oirat players swapping over to play Korea. Um, I'm not as certain now. I think a Ming explosion is going to be coming, but I'm not sure it's going to be expected. Like Bengal's being a little sneaky, but Mong Yang there is their vassal, which means they border, not quite, but they pretty much border Ming. The very least, Mong Mao is a tributary, so they could go to war. And Ming makes, I think, something ridiculous in manpower.
They are currently out of manpower.
Yeah, but they make 1.25. So um, I think with a truce, I think if the moment this truce is up 12 years, it's hard to say. If Bengal takes a bite right now, I think a Ming explosion will happen. Um, but I don't know that Bengal can afford to take a bite. Probably with their allies, probably, but you never know. If they don't, it's hard to say because with only the three players, me and Tibet, Korea, and Ashikaga, interested in taking out a Ming, and I don't see it happening soon. Because Ming's just going to recover. It's going to be a hard fight for sure. If it's just us three, if Bengal gets in there, then sure. But then you're saying Tibet, like me, as Tibet, like, are you gonna be able to get anything from that? And if not, why are you bothering, sort of thing. So it'll be interesting to see.
Ashikaga's
Ming's,
playing a strong game.
yes,
Still has a large number of daimyos. Um, they could definitely be a threat for Ming. Plenty of ducats to be earned. Um, Help pay off some of their debt here. I think I think Ming is done. Their income is not great. Debt is starting to pile up a little bit. 4,500. Um, Granted, if they drop their army maintenance, they can work it back. But decent number of rebels, low mandate. Um, they're currently in the middle of a disaster, which is spiking their tech costs, decreasing morale of armies, and spiking national unrest. I, I just don't see how Ming can hold on.
I mean, I don't know. It's like you said, they got a lot going for them, but in terms of the players that have actually been pursuing, as far as I know, and I was playing in the Mamluk, so maybe I missed something. But as far as I know, in terms of the players actively seeking to take down Ming, the only one that is standing in a decent position is the Ashikaga Shogunate, and they don't have they don't really have the economic wherewithal to do it by themselves. Um, Even if I in Tibet build up to my force limit, that's not a lot right now. Even if Korea gets out of their trouble, I haven't looked at the save edits, so I don't necessarily know. But even if they get out of it's going to happen. Ming explosion's going to happen. The Ming explosion's going to happen, but I don't know that it's going to be this. It could. It also, I think, it partly depends on how well these rebels do. If these rebels can do a lot of damage and keep that devastation up and stuff, then it'll definitely happen. But if they get stomped real quick and the fort siege down super quick, then it's a lot less likely.
And we'll pivot real quick here. Great powers, obviously Ming's still up there, soon to be dropping. We've Ottomans, Muscovy, Delhi, Vijay, Mamelukes, France, Malaya. Next week we do this video, we open up this list. What changes do you expect to see?
I'm going to say that Mamluks are going to be off that list.
Replaced by?
Castile's not on that list yet.
Nope. Castile is not. Poland is not.
Poland's not. I could see, unless the Mamluks, which Fizz wouldn't do, but unless he like betrays Ethiopia and takes over, I don't see him getting enough dev to be on that list. Not saying that they're going to become weaker; they're still going to be very strong and a force to be reckoned. I just don't see him working with Ethiopia and the Ottomans or Delhi or whoever, Spain maybe, having the dev to stay on that list long term when he has, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth still to kind of come through. Sweden very soon is going to start building up. He might not make a great power, but he might. You never know. And then, yeah, Castile, England, of course. England's not even formed Great Britain yet. They're going to pop up there.
And obviously, you'll be shifting over to Tibet. What are you most interested in seeing on Saturday? Are you excited to see if anything happens from an Indian aggression towards yourself? Are you gonna be mainly focused on Ming and keeping one eye towards Europe? What is your what are you looking
I'm
forward to
not,
most?
yeah, I'm not worried about India. 'Cause it's not something I can feasibly worry about. If they want to kill me, then it's just going to happen. But I reckon they got more important stuff to do than to bother with the Lhasa node. It's not worth anything at all, and Bengal can take pretty much everything out of it he wants to. Um, I think my biggest concern would be the amount of players that are around me um, that have consolidated their land and are now expanding into other lands. I'm going to find it very hard to push to anywhere of value. My real expansion nodes are either kind of northwest into Chagatai and Yarkon, which is a decent place because there's a gold mine there. So, but um, or pushing kind of directly east into China, into the Ming, um, and we'll see. Tibet has missions that I'm probably going to try to go down as best I can, which involves taking out Shinan, which is kind of the Chengdu node and that sort of stuff. I'll definitely not probably. I'll definitely avoid doing the Bengal mission. It's a bit. This is going to be a bit much, but otherwise, I got some decent options there that I can explore and that sort of thing. But definitely mostly involved in China.
And yeah, I'm interested in seeing, are the Chinese going to break out? Or, sorry, not the Chinese. Are the Indians going to break out of India and start flexing their power? The triumvirate is quite strong right now. If they continue to work together, they will be probably the number one power block. And then I'll keep one eye towards India and one eye towards Europe. Not a lot of AI left in Europe. Tensions may already be building or are soon to be building. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I do expect some conflict between the HRE and some of the external parties, and maybe some internal HRE drama. It should be an action-packed session.
Yeah, and especially now that we're starting to get colonial nations, it's going to be very interesting to see as players kind of get killed off. Where are they going to go? Because there's colonial nations that are going to be opening up for players to join in as, and then that'll change how a lot of things go, I think. So,
Yeah, it should be quite interesting. Well, Zale, great as always to talk to you, and best of luck over in Tibet.
yeah, thank you, man, and good luck between Europe and Asia and Africa. That's a fun place to be.
Thank you.